I've got a 2005 Toyota Corolla here. I'm going to be changing out the wheel bearing. It's actually, what I'm changing is the entire steering knuckle and hub assembly. I'm also swapping out the strut in this video. So I'm destaking the hub nut, just raising that up here. I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the hub nut. Even before I take the tire off or anything, I just go ahead and loosen that up. Pop off all the lug nuts. Obviously before this, I jacked up the car. It's sitting on a jack stand, so, trying to be safe. So pull the tire off, get it down to the axle there. So the first thing I'm doing here is I'm pulling the brake caliper off of the hub, and there's a bolt on there's two bolts, one on the top and one on the bottom, and it'll pull the entire caliper assembly right off of the hub. So those are the two bolts that I'm taking out here. Then we're just gonna, pull the entire assembly off, and I try to just set it back where it's out of the way. You can hang it from a hanger, or later on I put it on a jack stand just to try to keep it out of the way. So now it's time for me to take off the rotor itself. I'm putting the lug nuts back on because the rotor's not wanting to come off, and I'm going to have to bang on it quite a bit here. So it's pretty tough getting it off. Like I say, a lot of beating and banging on I try to limit it to the face of the rotor here, but eventually I have to go around the back with I put a metal plate on the back and actually hit it from the back side. Again, pretty tough for me to get off. It was kind of a pain, but it eventually came off. And so there we go, broke loose, pull the lug nuts, and then I can pull the rotor off there. So give a little spin there. Yeah, I can hear the bearing in there is bad. So a little bit later on, I think you'll hear it better. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and zip the hub nut the rest of the way off. And then the next thing to do is get the little steering arm and the lower control arm, kind of detach those. So on the lower control arm, there's a ball joint. You can take the ball joint off. I chose to take there's two bolts and a nut down at the bottom of on the lower control arm, and that way you don't have to pop the ball joint right at this minute. So that's what I'm doing here is taking those three fasteners, again, two bolts and a nut, pulling those off the lower control arm so I can free up the hub assembly there. So pretty easy to get out. I think those are all 17 millimeters down there. And then I'm able to push the transaxle out, kind of get it out and out of the way. All right, and then here's the ball joint on the steering linkage. So there's a cotter pin that you have to take out. It's a castle nut. I think this one's a 17 millimeter as well. Again, just loosen it up. It didn't spin on me or anything, so it's pretty lucky I was able to loosen it right up, and it came right off. So here in a minute, I take it most of the way off. I still leave the nut on there, or I get it loose at least. Leave the nut on, and then I'm gonna give it a little tap with a hammer there, just to break it loose. I think they make pullers for these as well. I didn't use that, but they do have those available. So once that's off, the whole hub here is pretty much free. 2 nuts and bolts that go through the strut body there. And so here's where I'm pulling those off. These are a little bigger. I think these are 19 millimeter sockets that I use to take these off. So now these may have been a little bit easier to loosen up. Maybe go through and loosen everything while it's all still attached to the car. Again, once this is kind of free and hanging, it just wants to move around a lot. And the same thing there's another little stabilizer bar that I'll take off here in a second, but same thing. Potentially I should have loosened those up before taking the lower control arm off and things like that. Would have made it a little easier, since it wouldn't be kind of swinging and hanging and moving around so much. So that comes right out, pretty easy. Okay, so here's the new hub assembly, the old hub, steering knuckle and hub with the bearing assembly. I think that's what they call it. Hopefully you can hear that. That's the original, of course. And definitely the new one does not do that. So I do have to take this little ball joint off the bottom of here. It did not come with the new steering hub assembly. So I've got that. I checked everything. It looks like everything lines up. It's got the dust shield ready to go. All right, so now I'm at the point where I'm going to free up the strut. So to get it out. So there's a little stabilizer linkage here that hooks to the strut. So at first I tried just with a socket to kind of break it free. Again, everything's moving around. So I just grabbed my impact and hit it once and just kind of free things up. So this ball joint is pretty cool. I didn't notice it at first, but there's an Allen key on the top there, and so you can actually tighten and loosen that the ball joint on these ends without them spinning. That's what you get into occasionally, is they spin and they don't want to tighten or don't want to loosen. So this is pretty cool. It's got an Allen key in the front, and then you just take off the nut. And so at the end of this video, I have a little tip about ball joints when I was reinstalling everything. So if you're wondering how that works, how to get a ball joint, just how to install the nut back on a ball joint and stop it from spinning. Again, that's at the end of the video. There's a little short clip on how I did mine. And then I switched over. I went over and went ahead and I'm pulling the cable for the brakes, the brake caliper. I went ahead and took that bolt out, and just so I can move the brake caliper. I have to take it off anyway to remove the strut, but just to get the brake caliper out of the way a little bit more. That stabilizer bar, I just took out the top one. On the bottom, it's a little more difficult to get to, so I went ahead and removed this line just to get that kind of pushed over and out of the way. So now we're going to go down to that lower stabilizer, and again, this one's a little tough to get to. It's not impossible, but it's facing away from you, so the nut's facing you know, in towards the middle of the car. And I don't know if the camera angle gets it good here, but it's just a little tougher to get to. You can't really see, so I'm just kind of feeling around and breaking it loose. But again, not impossible. Once you get it loose, you know, I'm going to stick the Allen wrench on the other end to make sure that it's not spinning, and just go ahead and loosen up the nut on that other side. So overall, this doing this was not terribly difficult, and nothing, you know, one of the worst things was getting the rotor off. Like you seen earlier, it's kind of stuck on there, and you have to sit there and hit it with a hammer and try to get it off. So that was one of the more difficult things to do, was that just get the rotor off. And then I just popped it with a hammer, the top stabilizer, just hit it with a hammer, and just comes right out. So here I switch around to underneath the hood. So you know, everything's disconnected from the strut body. And again, if you're only doing your wheel bearings or something like that, you're not interested in any of this. But there's just 3 bolts here, or 3 nuts, I'm sorry, here at the top of the under the hood, and at the top of the strut. And I think these are 12 millimeter that I took out. So go back underneath and grab it and just push it up, and I loosened up all the nuts, and now I'm just taking them off by hand. So it drops down pretty easy, and there's the old strut. So this car's got 280,000 miles on it. These have never been replaced, so it was about time. But just took side by side the new and the old, make sure everything lined up and looked good. You know, they look identical. So I'm not gonna do the whole video on reinstalling this. You know, it's kind of the reverse of what we just did. So there are a few tips after this little clip here of reinstalling it. But anyways, thanks for watching. You know, let me know of any comments, anything that you guys did better or that I did wrong. Anyways, good luck. Thanks for watching. Okay, so putting this back together, real quick, just wanted to show this linkage right here doesn't fit on there real easily. So I made sure it was the same as my old one, but it was still very, very tough to get on. So what I had to do, you can see here, I just wanted to show you, I've already got it on, but basically I had to put a board and move that down until this hole lined up. But it was a good ½ inch higher than the hole here in the strut body. So anyways, board in, press down on this this little arm, and get these to line up. Just want to show you guys that real quick. This little ball joint from my old steering knuckle to the new one. And of course, when I was trying to tighten this nut, it was just spinning. So what I did, if you can see here, I've got my jack, and then basically I put a little socket on the base of the jack, so it hits the bottom of that ball joint, and just jack this up, put a lot of pressure on it, and then I was able to tighten that nut without the threaded portion of it spinning on me. So it seemed to work pretty good. Again, don't know, can't recommend anyone doing it other than it worked. I don't know if it's good, bad for the ball joint or anything like that, but it worked. So that's what I did.